Today, I am really excited to welcome Ellie Mullins to the show. Our three key takeaways for this episode are first, what a Michigan retailer thinks about when selecting wines for their store. What's the criteria of the wine itself, the stories they're wanting to share. Next, what is the value of retailer relationships with importers and how this connects retailers directly to the wineries? And third, what it means to be an independent wine shop in a tight knit community in the Midwest of the United States. So let's dive in. Welcome to Masterclass US Wine Market with me, Barbara Fitzgerald. In this show, we'll break down the complexities of selling wine in the US by discussing the relevant issues of today with experts from around the globe. Each episode serves up three key insights to help elevate your winery's presence in the US market. So grab a pen and paper and let's pave the way for your success in the US. Hello, welcome to Masterclass US Wine Market. Today, I am really excited to welcome Ellie Mullins to the show. Ellie is a wine entrepreneur with over 2 decades of experience in the industry. She began her journey in California's Santa Barbara AVA, where she worked as a mixologist and a wine steward. She's gone on to establish two really highly regarded businesses in Michigan, the first being a specialty food store called Local, which featured a small yet really well curated wine selection. And for the past 6.5 years, Ellie has owned her and operated her own P&E bottle shop, a boutique wine store in the charming village of Three Oaks, Michigan, which is just a short distance from Chicago. So alongside the bottle shop, Ellie and her husband, Pat, also own a pizzeria called Patelli's, where they share their love for delicious food with their community. And Ellie's businesses have always been really highly regarded by locals, tourists, and journalists alike, thanks to her innate ability to understand her customers and their preferences and provide them with exceptional wine and culinary experiences. So welcome to the show, Ellie. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Barb.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only is Ellie an expert on all things Michigan, she's also my sister-in-law. So I'm really extra glad that you're here joining us this morning.
Thank you.
And before we dive into today's discussion, Ellie, can you tell us a little bit more about your background and how you came to work in the wine business?
Sure, of course. Wine, I like to say, runs in my DNA, which is probably why we're family. My brother is a winemaker in Sonoma County. My dad and stepmom grow grapes in Sonoma County since like the late 90s. My sister has also been in the sales side of wine. It's just part of our life and our family. It's what we do. We eat and we drink wine, and we talk about eating and drinking more wine. And my education has been really hands-on. I was able to work in some really wonderful restaurants and work with really great wine distributors. And I've done a lot of travel, and it's led me to make great relationships with from winemakers to importers to distributors. And there's just always so much more to learn about wine. And I think that's what intrigues me about it. It's like I always have more to discover, and I can never get bored.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always a new page to turn. So I think it's really great to have episodes on the show where we really deep dive into specific markets within the US. So our listeners, you can go back through some of mine and Juliana's episodes to learn about Florida, Connecticut, Colorado, Pennsylvania, to name a few. But in this episode, we're really excited to learn from Ellie all about the Michigan retail market. So our three key takeaways for this episode are first, what a Michigan retailer thinks about when selecting wines for their store. What's the criteria of the wine itself, the stories they're wanting to share. Next, what is the value of retailer relationships with importers and how this connects retailers directly to the wineries. And third, what it means to be an independent wine shop in a tight knit community in the Midwest of the United States. So let's dive in. So, first, let's start with a bit of the geography about the state for those who might not know. So, Ellie, can you explain where Michigan is situated? What does it border? And what are the main metropolitan areas?
So, Michigan is in the Midwest. We actually are bordered by four Great Lakes: Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, Lake Huron, Lake Superior. We sit right above Indiana and Ohio. And just over the border from our largest metropolitan city, Detroit, is Ontario, Canada. So anyone you meet from Michigan will immediately show you their hand as a mitten. We're actually divided in two parts. So there's the Upper Peninsula that's very rural and a little harder to get to, and then the lower part of the mission of the mitten that is pretty much the base of the state where all the big cities are. We're in the southwest corner, closest about an hour and a half outside of Chicago, but Detroit is probably our biggest city over on this side. It's very vast and obviously was grown very much during the automobile industry. Since then, it's kind of had a new growth over these last 10 years. I feel like there's a lot of independent businesses. It's become this hub for the arts and culinary programs. So we're seeing a lot of wonderful restaurants and a lot of great wines, a lot of great art. We also have like a lot of college towns. So we've got Ann Arbor and Lansing and Kalamazoo. Those are definitely younger demographics with a little bit of academics in there. We also have some kind of mid-sized Midwest cities, Grand Rapids. Those were built with like manufacturing and shipping. So there's maybe a little less diversity in those cities, but you're seeing a lot of young entrepreneurs and families like starting their business because they can have the opportunity to buy a home and start a business with a little less risk, and there is a demand for a little bit more in those areas.
Absolutely. I think that's what really strikes me when I've visited you in Michigan is how many entrepreneurs are there. And that's a really good call out that it's a great place for somebody to start a business because it's really hard to do that in New York or California where it's very expensive.
Yes, exactly.
So, can you talk a little bit then about the consumer demographics in these main metropolitan areas? And also, you already spoke a little bit about Detroit specifically, but maybe even more about your area being so closely situated to Chicago and what role that plays.
Yes. So we're about an hour and a half drive from Chicago. I like to compare it to people in San Francisco driving to the wine country or people in New York driving to Hudson Valley. We're this little getaway, but we do have full time residents. It's definitely like not the majority of our population. Our village, I think, has 1,400 people year round, but we have so many second homeowners and vacationers and but people who come here like this is part of their regular weekend getaways. So we do also not only have influence from Chicago, we have influence from Detroit, Ann Arbor. We're not far from Notre Dame and South Bend. We have people who come down from Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. We're a beach community. We have a beautiful white sandy beaches along the lake. So during the summer, I would say there's a big population of people coming for like family reunions and parties. We're starting to see a lot more of those bachelorette and ton of weddings. Everybody wants kind of that country wedding. So it's a big destination town.
Which makes it a really exciting place for wine. These are all events that people want wine for, right?
Oh, yes, they do for sure.
Yeah. So, what role does the fact that Michigan actually has its own wine production areas play in kind of the wine appetite of your local consumers?
Well, this is actually a pretty exciting topic because I feel like in the last 10 years, we've started getting a little more notable wines coming out of Michigan. We do have a beautiful wine country near us. And when I first moved here, I would say that the reputation for Michigan wine there wasn't as great of quality. We had a lot of sweet wines and things were just kind of being done more as a hobby than like taken seriously. So I do have people who approach it cautiously when they come into the store, but over the last 10 years since we've had people kind of make waves with making really thoughtful wines in our area, I now have people who come like seeking for Michigan wine. It's been exciting. It's still a small percentage of what we do, but we're proud of it and I'm excited to showcase it. So, I mean, I always have a handful of wines in my shop and I can always recommend some good wineries for people to go to. I don't know that would ever like be the bulk of what we would do, but we're proud that we do have some really talented winemakers and we have some great things to show in our state.
Definitely. Do you think that it translates though to your consumers being more interested in wines in general? Or is it just kind of the Michigan focus that they
No, I would say it is people interested in wines in general. I mean, some I will admit are cautious. They're like, like I have this beautiful Pinot from Michigan, and they're like, oh, from Michigan. And I love to say, like, you trust me because you come into the store and you trust me, and I have not steered you wrong. And I'll even be like, if their guest is nervous about it, I'm like, blind them on it, and then have them taste it, and then after be like, yeah, that was made here in Michigan. So it's pretty cool. But I
Yeah.
think it is wine lovers who are interested, but they are definitely a little cautious because it's still new.
Yeah, but I think that you mentioned a really important point about you as a retail shop owner, that your consumers trust you and that you've worked really hard to build that relationship with them. So when trying anything new, whether it's a wine from Michigan or a wine from Italy, you already have their ear.
Yes, I hope so. And I mean, yeah, I do. It's pretty cool. It's a fun relationship we have. We do.
Yes, definitely. Well, let's look a little bit more specifically now at your area of Southwest Michigan, and what kind of Italian wines are your consumers looking for, especially in terms of price and taste profile?
It's a big range. I would say we do, because of our community being like, we have parties, we have like we have people coming up and having a big party at a lake house or a wedding. We also have a lot of retirees in the area who like to have parties every weekend. So a bulk, probably the most volume that we sell in the shop, are what I like to call our wallet friendly wines, which are 16 and under. So there we have some really recognizable labels. Like we have some Chianti, some Barbera d'Asti, some Pinot Grigio, but we also have some wines to introduce them to, which like Aglianico and Bellangina and Fiano, Pecorino. We try to, say, well, if you'd like this, you'd like this. And I will say our wallet friendly wines are not mass produced wines either. They're still like really thoughtfully made wines, but it's just like a good way to get people into the door with that. The next portion of our shop, I would say, is we do sell like a lot of $25 to $50 bottle of wines. Those will have a lot of, again, recognizable wines, like more, higher end, mid range end Chiantis, Barbera d'Albas, some nice like Nebbiolos from the Longue, some Montepulciano, some Sicilian. Sicilian's really been catching on, and some Vermentino. But I will say, because of our shop and our clientele is so diverse, that I have people who come in and they want to spend $130 on the 6 bottles of Palabea Sagrantino I got, or a 2017 Barolo sells really well. But definitely that's not volume wise. I don't sell as many of those, but I definitely need them in my shop. I try to have, those everyday party wines, those just nice dinner wines, and then like kind of those, I have a few of those once in a lifetime bottles, and I'm lucky enough to get them in the shop.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So you do have consumers across the board who want those everyday drinkers, but also who are looking for those special products and maybe even those, I'll say, more highly regarded
Yeah,
Italian wines too.
yeah, definitely.
So how important is the winery story to your consumers? Would you say more of them want to know the romantic details of the winery?
I mean, it's one of my favorite parts. And so I think it is. I think they love it because I share those stories with them all the time. And I think that draws them to the wines. I don't know that they remember the stories completely. But I would say, too, when my consumers have traveled in Italy, they come in and they're sharing those stories with me as well. I can't tell you how many times people are coming back from a trip and showing me photos on their phone and asking me about stuff. So I would say we love those stories. I think that's what attaches us to the wines themselves.
And have you ever kind of from your consumers like learned about a wine that you've then brought into your shop from a visit of theirs?
Oh, wow. I'm sure, but let me think about it. I mean, definitely from you, but that's from you and my brother for sure. Not right now off the top of my head in Italy, I would say. But I mean, there's so many wineries, which is tough, because people will come in and be like, "Do you know this winery?" And most of the time, I'm like, "Maybe no,"
Yeah.
but they haven't yet, so I'll have to keep an eye out for that.
Yes.
People have visited wineries that I know and love, so that's been kind of cool.
Yeah,
And they like
definitely.
bring me little cards or something from there.
Little mementos.
Yes.
Well, let's talk a little bit more now about your kind of more professional relationships. So, how do you build your relationships with their importers, and how are they really acting as a bridge to the wineries in your portfolio?
They're huge. Those relationships have been the most important relationships for my business. It's been interesting because now I have been, since before this shop, I had the specialty grocery. I have been selling wine in Michigan for about 14 years. So it took me a little while to build these relationships, but I've met them from, I mean, just like your classic tasting events or the ride alongs with distributors, and also just like kind of going down those holes of emails like, who's this person, who's this person, how can I get this wine, how can I get this wine. Sometimes I'll reach out to a winery directly when I'm looking for a wine, and they're like, this is who I work with in this state. And so over time I've met importers, and we connected. They've come into the shop, we've done tastings, we've done a lot of dinners together, wine dinners together, but really we've kind of become friends. And that's been just special. I think when everybody's so passionate about wine, it's just like they're your friend in the wine world and they want to share things with you. You want to hear about their travels. I mean, it's so fun when my importers or distributors are traveling throughout Italy and visiting wineries, and they're like texting me stuff. I just think it's the coolest thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're there right now and they're sending me this
Yeah.
nice picture. It just makes me feel connected.
Absolutely. And what a beautiful thing for even an Italian winery, a producer to know like the conversation that is being had about their wines and the people getting excited about it along the way. I hear often from Italian wineries that I work with, that they send their wine to the US and then they have no idea what happens with it and what people are saying about it. And so they should know that people are saying wonderful things and getting really excited about what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think they're importers. I mean, I just am so fortunate to work with them because they're the ones that really tie it all together for me.
Absolutely. Well, would you mind mentioning a few of the names of the importers you
Oh,
work with in case there's an Italian winery looking for one out there?
oh, for sure. Loci Imports, LOCI is one of my absolute favorite. They're newer and just really finding the most thoughtfully produced wines. Really love some bigger name ones that I'm sure, know. Banville Wine Merchants has been amazing. I've had a lot of fun doing tasting events and dinners with them as well. The sorting table, I think, is just really wonderful. It's one that kind of bridges across outside of Italy as well, and even domestically, but their wines are wonderful. I also love some of the bigger names like Rosenthal, is such a great representation of wines from a certain area. I also try to teach my customers in the shop, when I'm not there, which is rare, or if they're somewhere else and they always ask me like, how do I know how to buy wine? I tell them to get to know the importers they love and look for those on the label because you can trust them.
That's a really great piece of advice for consumers. I do the same. If I'm in a restaurant and I'm like, oh, this is Oliver McCrum, I'm going to like it,
Yeah,
or something like that.
totally.
So let's talk a little bit more about the specifics of your shop. How many wines do you have in total, and how many of those are Italian wines?
At this point, we have over 900 wines in inventory, and I would say about 30% is Italian. And that's with speaking that I really have wines from all over the world. That's a really good majority of the shop. I would say 30% because I have wines from everywhere, from
Yeah,
the country of Georgia and Serbia and Slovenia and Croatia. So that
very cool.
it's hard for me not to keep buying Italian wine.
No one here will fault you for that. And what would you say some like favorite producers, specific producers in your shop are
Oh,
for the Italian wines?
yeah. I would say I like some every night ones that I love are La Caprinera out of Campania, Italy. I just think they make really like pure, approachable wines. I love bison wines from Liguria. I love Elena Walsh. Oh my gosh,
Yes,
the wines are just gorgeous. I love anything by Elisabetta Foradori. I think just some really easy, approachable wines and price points. The G di Vajra wines are really wonderful. And Some newer ones that I've really been loving, La Colombera from Piedmont, it
Yes.
is beautiful. Timarasso is gorgeous.
No, but I love this because I think our listeners are really getting a sense that you have a wide range of really interesting and unique wines for your consumers, and they're excited about that.
Yeah, I would say often people come into my store who are coming in for the first time and they're like, I don't know any of these wines. And so it's really fun to introduce them. Or they see, just specific ones that they're like, oh, I haven't seen this anywhere. I've seen this, I had this once at a restaurant in New York or somewhere. And so I feel
Yeah.
very fortunate to get to have it here in the shop.
That's fantastic. And as someone who's been to your shop, I can attest to the fact that you really are a hub for your community. I mean, it's kind of come up a few times in the episode how much people value you in their lives and how much they trust you. And even with the tourists, you're able to really kind of understand them and make great recommendations for them. So, how do you communicate the features and benefits of a wine to really fit the needs and values of your customers? And how are you even understanding what those needs and values are?
Well, I think first off, I'm like, well, what's this for? What are you doing? Are you eating? Are you? I'm always like, what's the weather like? I love it outside. I'm very seasonal with drinking. And then I always try to find their price point and the crowd that they're serving too. I think it's nice when people are serving a crowd, I try not to put them in a corner by picking something like specific that people know. I actually try to find something that people don't know so that in case anybody has strong feelings about something, they can be like, oh no, this is new thing that you're going to like. Yeah, it really just depends on that. So if it's like a beach day or a party, I'm looking at some light bright reds and rosés and bubbles, always chillable reds. But it's just about listening to them and knowing my inventory and being able to suggest and share with them some wines that would fit their needs for that occasion.
Yeah. I love that because I've also seen some of your customers come back and say, that you are part of their special celebrations because you make such fantastic recommendations for them when they're having their get togethers.
Yeah. It's funny in a small town, I often know like what's being served at a party so that if somebody's coming to go to the party and bring the host a gift, I'll be like, well, they already bought this. So you want to get this. You know,
So, yeah, for those that are also thinking of taking a trip to Southwest Michigan, now you know how well curated your wine experiences can be while there. Okay, so as we kind of start to wind down a little bit, we like to have our rapid fire quiz where we ask our guests three questions to help our listeners better understand the US market and specifically this episode, the Michigan market. So just answer in a couple sentences if you can. What is your number one tip for an Italian winery to kind of master the Michigan wine market?
oh, wow. I would say to find a wonderful importer, build a great relationship with them, come visit us, come to our shops, get to know our clientele. If you have a wonderful importer, you'll have a wonderful distributor that will set you up with like some great tasting events and some dinners. And the more that we all have that like hands on, it's kind of like that touch. It's a touch job, high touch job. If we feel like we like get to know you, then you're just part of our shop forever. And we're always excited about the wines that were brought into our country, into our state, into our shop.
That's fantastic. And again, I just want to remind everyone what you called out in the beginning, such an interesting market with a lot of academics, a lot of kind of high income individuals with maybe second homes. So definitely a wine curious appetite.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
definitely.
So number two, what is something you would have told your younger professional self about selling wine in the US?
I would say travel more when you're younger, which I mean I got to, but I would even do more. And I would love to have learned more languages at a younger age. So I wish I could have done that. I just speak French. I wish I could speak Italian and Spanish too. So
There's always time. What is your favorite Italian wine you've discovered in your market?
and that is like picking what kid is favorite. So it changes by my mood and my day and everything. But I would say most recently, I'll have to go back to La Colomberas Timarasso because I got to taste some older vintages of it as well. And just like it's such a purity driven wine with incredible aging potential. And I also love to call out like the beautiful white wines from Italy and the indigenous grapes, because they are truly just some of my favorites. And
Here, here, yes.
yeah.
I'm with you. We actually at our business forum, Wine to Wine in Verona in November, did a whole tasting seminar on Italian ageable white wines
Oh,
because
cool.
there are so many wonderful, and yes, Timorasso definitely up there. Okay, well, Ellie, those are all our questions. So thank you so much for joining us today on Masterclass US Wine Market. How can our listeners connect with you?
We have our website at www.pebottleshop.com. My husband is Pat and I'm Ellie, so it's PE. And then we're on Instagram at PE Bottle Shop, and we're also on Facebook.
Wonderful. So good for importers or Italian wineries to reach out to you, but also consumers. This is like you said, a vacation destination, and you're a real draw to the beach life.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again, Ellie. We really appreciate your time, and I know I'll be seeing you very soon.
Looking forward to it. Cheers.
Take care. And that's a wrap for this episode of Masterclass US Wine Market. Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode and want to stay up to date with the latest industry trends, remember to like, follow, and share our podcast. And if you find value in our conversations, please leave us a review to help others discover the show and grow our community. Stay tuned for new episodes every Monday. Until then, brindiamo il vostro successo!